For a bit of context for this video, I interviewed Immy about 3 months ago as part of my Creator Sessions series. I'd got home from the interview to find out the audio from that take had been corrupted and we needed to film again. And then the coronavirus happened. 3 months later, the world has changed immensely, and now he's in the grip of some of the biggest global protests regarding racism we've ever seen. I want to speak to Immy about his creative side, and I do. He's a brilliant, eccentric and thoughtful person with a highly creative and imaginative mind. I wanted to thank him for also talking about a difficult subject later in the film. It's not easy to have these conversations, but by doing so we learn, adapt and gain an education in perspective. Welcome to the JLP Creator Sessions Ep 6. Welcome to take 2 of my interview with Immanuel Dreessens. Immy, thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming back to my caravan.
There was a couple of audio technical difficulties with our first interview, but obviously right now in the world there's some big issues going on. So I can probably look at these audio glitches as a sign that we get to talk again about some bigger issues as well as your creative side. So we'll touch on some of them later in the video, but I want to talk about your creative stuff first.
Yep.
Tell me how you started being creative, how you started getting into music.
Well, I got into music in the womb. Both my parents are musicians and performers. And my mum and dad were performing together in Melbourne, and my mum kind of like was dancing and my dad was playing music, and she kind of felt this like weird feeling inside of her, and she looked at my dad and dad looked at her, and then she's like, oh wow, I must be pregnant. Yeah, so I was performing in the womb.
That's a cool story. So from a very, very early age you were like destined to be a musician.
Yeah, and I tried to fight it. My dad, who is a musician, was like, oh, you should be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And then I actually went to uni, film school stuff. But I think there was a certain situation where I was like, all my friends are going off making short films and I'm going off to gigs. So yeah.
So you definitely dabbled in like other forms of art. It wasn't just music that drew you towards it. So you've done a lot of film and TV as well. Yeah,
but I feel like it all kind of it goes into it itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
they blend together.
That's it. I used to do acting, which kind of gave me some nice confidence.
Yeah.
Do a lot of like animation and visual art, which I've kind of put into a lot of music videos. So yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of music videos, the biggest project you've probably done is that Dead Celebrities music video, which probably combines all of your creative talents in music and film and TV. Tell us a bit about that, because that's probably the number one thing if I was to tell someone about you, is to watch that video clip, because it's awesome.
Oh, thank you. So I made that about like 2 years ago or something, and that was just with a bunch of my mates. It sort of came together, happened in the middle of a bushfire. We were technically meant to evacuate Anglesey. There were fires going on everywhere, and we kind of just ignored the council, put on all the air conditioners, and made this music video because it kind of had to happen. And yeah, it kind of it brought together all my film mates and all my regular mates and all my friends that are artists, and it was really good
to help out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that one of the projects that made you started thinking bigger about your creative stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, every time I kind of I'll kind of look back on that and think, yeah, it was great, but I can kind of like do better. And I think even like the previous release I did called Danger, it's like I can do better than that as well. So yeah, no, it's great. It's great developing and seeing that, but it's also good to see what I've made in the past as well. Yeah.
Obviously it's been quite a weird time for everyone at the moment with the virus and being in lockdown. Is there any sort of plans on your next album or your next sort of creative launch based out of this lockdown, or?
Well, as a lot of artists can resonate with, I was fully ready to release new music, and I was fully ready to, you know, I was going to go to America this year. Thank God I'm not doing that. And, you know, I was going to release, I think, 3 different EPs with not only my own stuff, with other bands. And it was very confronting when your purpose is just like taken away, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think I lost like a lot of like a couple of $1,000 in gigs and teaching and stuff like that, and it was really confronting to have to stop. Which is difficult sometimes to just stop.
Did you find it hard, obviously, to keep that creative drive going through that lockdown period, or is it something that comes naturally to you to just keep making stuff?
I haven't kept it going, to be honest. And that was really tough. It's like I lost my reason for living, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
purpose.
Yeah, my purpose. Because for me, I never quite feel as alive as when I'm playing music and performing on stage and stuff like that. And so it's like I lost my will a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And but then it was kind of good to kind of just get back to, you know, just like randomly like picking up an instrument and just like playing it, just you know, just because I want to.
Yeah.
And
had that extra time.
Yeah, and I started writing some better songs.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't that pressure of what I think I have to do and what I have to do and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for everyone, obviously in general, but especially for creators, it was hard to, you know, find that drive. And as a creator, when you rely on getting out there and doing what you do to like get by, it can be hard to have periods of, you know, lockdown or not being able to do your work.
Yeah, and I think especially because, you know, especially because, you know, I'd played so many like bushfire fundraisers, and the arts had contributed so much, to, you know, trying to raise money to help fix all the devastation that those fires caused. It was also kind of a bit depressing to kind of see, like we're still kind of bottom of the barrel, bottom of the rung, which really kind of sucks sometimes.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned your mum before, who is obviously been a big inspiration for your music career and yourself. What's it been like having such a strong source of inspiration in the same house as you and giving you such a strong guiding light, if you like, in your career?
Yeah, my mum's been amazing. You know, she really has given me the space and to be who I want to be, and she's really nurtured that, which is really, really good. And like, even, you know, she's the European side of my family, but she was the one that kind of really is responsible for opening me up to like my African side.
Yep.
And, you know, she was the one that made sure I, you know, knew about my heritage, and, you know, took me to Africa to see my family, and made me, you know, learn things.
Because it wasn't something you always had embraced, that side of your family's culture, wasn't it?
No.
It was something you've grown into, especially now.
Yeah, especially. And I think anyone, whether you're whatever background, racial background, or maybe like, especially like, everyone just wants to fit in at school, and no one wants to be different, and, you know, you just want to, which is impossible. I think you realize that when you get out of school. It's impossible to like try to fit in to a mold, especially if you don't fit it. And yeah, and so it's pretty hard unlearning that mentality as well.
How important is that heritage now to you?
It's way more important now, I think, more important now than ever, I think, because I realized, I think the more I realize, it's like I've got friends that I've known for like over like 15 years, and sometimes it's like they don't know anything about me, and Sometimes it's, you know, it's my fault because I put forward like something and then I want to kind of push other things behind.
Yeah.
You know, in order to fit in, I guess. And that's a really kind of hard mentality to unlearn. And sometimes it's hard to open up with people about things. And, you know, I don't even, you know, I don't even think about it sometimes. Like my old one of my old friends who I met in primary school in grade 6 was like, you know, you were like the first black person I ever met in my life. And I'm just like, what? You're 12 years old.
Yeah.
You know, he was 12 years old. And for me, that's kind of like, I don't even think about that. Because especially, I grew up in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Where my best friend was from Iran. My other best friend was Muslim. First girl I had a crush on was from Malaysia. Second girl was Greek. And then I moved to Torquay, where it was all kind of very...
surfy white dudes.
Yeah, and you know, I went from like loving like hip hop, like 50 Cent, Eminem, you know, Tupac, and I kind of went from that to like somewhere where that was super unpopular, and everyone was just like listening to like Metallica and Slipknot, and finding your place in that, and sometimes you have to kind of forget bits of yourself,
which is interesting because you can certainly see that in yourself now. You've got quite, you know, the established multiple backgrounds that have made you into the person you are now. And even, you know, obviously we went to school together, and back then you weren't, you know, the black kid. You were just, you know, my friend. That's all that we saw, especially in our year level.
That's good.
It wasn't like a big thing.
Yeah.
We mentioned off the top, obviously, in America there's big, you know, protests and violence now because of the systemic racism that's been in place for a long time in that country. And, you know, there's questions being asked now in Australia as well, you know, how we look at ourselves, not only just the US. How are you finding all that?
It's a learning journey for me as well, because I think you know, I especially growing up in a pretty multi-ethnic neighborhood early on, and having the parents I did, I kind of thought like all like you know, like being racist and shit. You know, being racist was like something like silly thing people did ages ago. It's like the Holocaust or something like that. Like it doesn't exist. You know, that was a terrible time in history. And I think growing up, especially moving to Torquay, and you know, I think going to a school where you have to kind of make yourself feel small. You have to not be a tall poppy.
Yeah.
Because people cut that down, you know. And it doesn't matter if you're the black kid, the Asian kid, or the slightly effeminate kid, you know. You have to kind of like be small poppy, otherwise people are going to make you a target. And I think I learned, especially going to school we did, like I learned that pretty early on. Yeah. And I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing, but that was like a survival thing.
Yeah,
I'm sure, and it's not just like a race thing or anything. But I think because of that, I kind of forgot myself a little bit, and pushed away from myself a little bit. And I think it's sometimes been to my detriment, and then there's always little kind of bits and pieces where I kind of get reminded that I don't really fit in. Yeah. To what I think I am, or what I want. No, what I want to be, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Do you feel with all this media coverage globally now? Do you feel like empowered to, you know, stand up in a sense and like embrace exactly who you are, all forms of your culture and heritage, and really speak out?
I don't really want to be honest. I don't really want to. You know, especially like I used. Like starting this Immy-Owusu thing, especially, it was I wanted to blend, you know, like my African heritage and then my like, you know, rock and roll coastal heritage, blah blah blah, and I kind of wanted to like slightly educate people, and that's why I always wanted to make something like Afro rock or you know, and and that's what I wanted to do. But sometimes it's hard to do that without getting dragged into what's going on. And sometimes I almost didn't want to say things, but sometimes you just get dragged into it. And there's a lot of angry people in the world, and there's a lot of pissed off people in the world, and everyone's angry, and people are angry at each other. And you know, if you just kind of sit back on that, and you're not afraid, and you're too afraid to say something because you're scared of how people are going to react to it, you're just becoming a bystander to that as well.
And you're big on that too, is you know, standing up. It might not feel comfortable to do for, you know, people like myself or anyone else if they notice something, but you're big on getting people to like stand up, and that's the way we move forward. By educating, by confronting. And sometimes people don't even realize what they're saying is an issue. You know, like for me, like I've had issues with being racially profiled by cops. I've kind of just blown it off. I've had an issue with being with like, you know, like there was like some Catholic priest that thought I was like stealing. I think I said last time. There was this Catholic priest that thought I was like stealing bread. Like Eucharist. It was like, why? You know. At church.
Just different, you know, with teachers and principals and stuff like that. And you know, sometimes it's just like little things where people aren't really aware of what they're doing or what they're saying, if that makes sense.
It's a very like subconscious.
It's so subconscious. You know, I had a lot of issues with well, you know, all that kind of profiling stuff. It's pretty like I'm just kind of like used to that, if that makes sense, and I'm used to knowing how to deal with it, and I'm used to just, you know, putting on like my nice educated accent, so people can kind of just like go away. You gotta like bring up that facade, to not draw any attention, which sucks. That even just saying that, it sucks that you had to even have to get used to it, because it shouldn't have even been a thing. But you know, it is a thing, and I think it's just learnt. And that's how I learnt to deal with it, if that makes sense. You know, there was even a situation with one of my principal teacher I looked up to heaps, and I kind of like got ready. I did my hair up really nice, put on all my badges for school, and then dressed really nicely, ready to be like a shining beacon in my school. And I was like taking people through the school, and he kind of like stopped everyone, and he's like, "Look, I'm so sorry. I've got to apologize for this student, you know, like for his, you know, for how he looks and like his hair. Like, I'm so sorry." And that really kind of cut me down, because I really looked up to him heaps, and and you know, for me, like dreadlocks and whatnot, I always keep them there, and it's who I am, and I don't, like, for example, just doing like the shaved head, you know, that's for me, that's like a slave haircut. That's like a carryover from colonialism, which is why I don't like it. And interestingly enough, you know, it's sometimes like my African family, so it's still like wrapped up in colonial, you know, they are sometimes the most discriminating people I know, which is really upsetting to me. Because it's all just carried over, and that's really kind of hard to deal with. And so I have a lot of issues with like my family in Africa, because I don't have like a shaved head. You know, I don't go to church anymore. And it's just like, well, that was just kind of like, it's not even, it's a European religion that was imposed on you.
Which goes back to what you were saying about, you know, sometimes the hardest thing to do is talking to the people that you respect or fear the most or love the most.
Absolutely. You know, I've got members of my family, the non-white members, that are like, yeah, we should kill all the Muslims. Like, you know, Trump has the right idea. And I'm just like, how can you say that? How can you just so casually say that? Because, you know, can't you empathize with people? You know? it's not us and them, because sometimes people that you think of them are not with you either.
Yeah, it's everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, thanks for sharing
Mm.
those emotions.
Mm.
Firstly, because it's obviously a tough time, especially at the moment. But you know, over the course of your life in particular, there's obviously been some tough times too. But the fact that people like yourself now are standing up and helping educate and just be a voice for, you know, even just like the local Janjuk or Torquay or Geelong community in your sake, it's good to see. It's great to see people like you with a strong voice.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. I feel like I don't really, like, I just want to play music. And I kind of hate getting dragged into stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's hard not to sometimes.
It's hard not to, but just by being yourself, that's probably the most important thing. You're just Immy the musician, so.
Yeah, and I'm really sad that it takes the most powerful and greatest country in the world to kind of see their flaws for the rest of the world to see, like, you know, police brutality.
If that's the only thing that opens the door for change, then there's issues, but I guess we still got to grasp it and
absolutely
do the best we can.
Yeah.
Thanks again for joining me. I'll leave all your Instagram and a link to your music video as well, because I'd love for people to watch that, because that's still my favourite thing that I've seen you produce. So
thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
My pleasure.